Thank you, Kristen. I think I'm on.
Oh, there you go.
Very good.
Like
Thanks, Shane. So each time we go through the week now, small group, the evenings are free, that you can circle back and just let it marinate. Just enjoy the ideas and the thoughts that might be an encouragement to you in the formation. So the language we will use through the week is something like a takeaway, or maybe a series of thoughts that could be takeaways that you really want to nurture more later. So if you'd like, we'll take a break here in but a couple of minutes. If you would like, why don't you sit now for a moment and just invite the Lord into some of this content and enjoy that space for a few moments, and let Jesus maybe put his finger on something for you, and then get it down. And then I'll close us in prayer, and then we'll take a break, and I'll give instructions from there. My haunting image in many years of team life were colleagues for whom I did not like. And I don't think they liked me. I mean, let's be fair. It's not one way, right? And every once in a while, in my worst moments, when they resurface, I want to go punch somebody in the nose. And I have to bring those back to Jesus every time, because I have been parts of teams through which I was instigating a toxic environment, or I received it. And I had to navigate those. And that's part of the desire for us to come together, to allow space that isn't perfect, that actually could be partially broken, a space to allow it to sit and rest and press into a bit. So that's part of the opportunity this week. My operating assumption is this: you are not perfect. Can I get a witness? So maybe if you're like me and some experiences in team life that were less than ideal and not healthy, this sort of study and practice could be really healthy for us. So with that said, take the next 2 minutes, sit in it for a bit, you and Jesus, enjoy the moment, and then I'll call us back. Maybe if you'd like, as you put a bit of a period just for this moment, a little note in your reflection page right there, you could write something down like this: Jesus, thanks for enjoying time with me this morning. Why don't you just let him know and put it down on paper and let him dote on you for just a few days together. Jesus, thank you for enjoying time with me this morning. Now, normally we'll take a 30-minute break, and that's a chance not only to tend to duties, but enjoy one another. We don't overly craft the week so that there's time just for good touching and relationship building. That 30 minutes is not now. Sorry. This day, we had to adjust the day a bit when the church came back and says, could you be out of the building, please, by such and such a time? So we've truncated things a little bit for the day. So if I could ask for a 15-minute break, but I promise the time is coming. We'll have more break time, and I want you to just enjoy getting to know one another, especially once small group time begins and we get into that. When we come back from break, then we're going to take some time for some introductions. Let me just briefly remind us of what we're trying to do in this NextGen thing, and then we'll move into some couple of small group exercises to kind of get you ramped up and getting to time to begin to enjoy your small groups. Shauna, if I'm saying take a break, they would go out here. Now the facilities are out here. You probably have already discovered that. By the way, I'll introduce her again later. Has everybody met Shauna? Just say hi, Shauna. So out here, and take a break, and it's 10:37. 15 minutes from now, about 5 of, try to come back. Does that sound good? All right, take a break, and we'll see you back here in 15. I think what we'll do is we'll begin and allow some of the other natives just to join us in due course. Okay. I want to affirm a thought that this movement was founded with the ideal of encouraging those serving cross-culturally and bringing that movement together for conversations like this and encouragement on the journey. Over the years, because we've lived in North America for a while, we spend time with pastors. And so I've just tried to encourage pastors to come too. We love the amalgamation of North American workers with global workers, feeling like the conversation gets enlivened, enriched. I think you need to hear one another's stories in the process. And I'm conscious, Brian, your sweetie, I think, is sitting right there. You got a seat, bro. Welcome in. I think, did your team win? Brian, welcome in. When I heard you were doing the game, I enough said. Anyway, back to pastors. The mission community has been assessed for attrition. There's a significant financial cost in sending workers globally. So it's a stewardship question. What I want to try to affirm that it's not a phenomena unique to missions that the North American pastorate gets stuck to. So I just want to affirm that in this process, that it's great that you're here, not just because we're wanting to help in the shaping and the formation of men and women serving globally, pressing to the edges of the unreached, but we're mindful that pastors, and how I'm framing it these days in America, are an endangered species. So it's good that we're together, and I love the fact that we're able to rub shoulders in the process. Cultivating the soil of healthy teams directly impacts the souls of individual team members. And so I just wanted to remind us, I added in here because Stir and I, but especially me, I still get to teach formally. And I spent a lot of time with pastors in North America. And I'm very thankful for that. But I'm also then, in light of that, I get a real chance to hear their hearts. So team members, that includes elders, deacons. And that's just as important. And it influences how the gospel goes forth into the nation. So we're thinking then, right, of soul care and teamness, not just as a mission enterprise, but also we're thinking about the church in America in this process. So I want to encourage us together to sit in that space. We've struggled over the years. This is a very organic thing. And so the word conference is a bit of a misnomer, but we've lacked language to use. So sometimes I call it a gig. Those of us who lived through the rock era of the 60s and the 70s, they were gigs. So it's a good word. I'm resurrecting an old word that the rock artists used to use, the word gig. But try to use language to figure out at least something of what we're trying to do. So maybe just go back for a sec. The NextGen is a catalytic collaborative movement. With a real strong emphasis on collaboration, so that throughout the week, it's literally a movement of all of us ministering to one another together and sharpening us and working through this stuff. Collaborative movement where we come together to strengthen, develop younger leaders serving globally, to care well for their own souls and those they influence, so that Jesus is made known among the nations. So there is a purpose clause there, and that was very intentional, that I want to keep a bias toward pressing in the gospel to the edges. There's 3 billion yet with limited access to Jesus. And I'd like to think we could be part of that. I will say a bit more about that when I introduce this afternoon I hope the way things are shaping up here, tomorrow morning I introduce to you John Kim and what John is doing. Okay, NextGen conference, movement, or gig, or if you come up with a word later in the week for this, you get the finder's fee. You're going to have let's say a lifetime supply of coffee. How's that? A powwow. She's got it already. So a word about the week. Evenings are intentionally free. It's just to enjoy, relax. Sometimes you have to get back to some things at the office. I get that and all. But if it's possible, let the evenings be time where you enjoy. You go have that extra cup of coffee or whatever you drink at night. Lunch and dinner are here. We'll eat together through Thursday. It's typically a simple flow of the week. Josh and Jay Woo. Jay Woo will be leading us in worship tomorrow. Josh speaks tomorrow afternoon through Thursday. For those able to stay, we wanted you to encourage you to be blessed by Williamsburg. If some benefactor years ago wanted to suspend American history in one moment in time, we'll enjoy it. So, and then we're going to come back together again on this campus for an evening dinner and the Lord's Supper, and then what I've been calling a time to debrief the spiritual ambiance of the week. So we'll be doing that. So through the week, generally morning, afternoon, we're going to hear from Lee. I'll frame that a little bit as well this afternoon, and why I thought it'd be great for us to hear from Lee and his journey. Maybe that's why it's important for us to hear for his journey. And then tomorrow with Nancy's going to be speaking to us. Josh, John Kim, I did a recording with John last week that we will show, and then we'll patch him in live to do a little bit of Q&A. Wednesday, Virgil has the morning. Wednesday afternoon, Deb is speaking to us, going to give us a sense of the world in Afghanistan and same time stuff. Thursday, Kevin Higgins speaks. Kevin's the president of Frontier Ventures, our org. And you'll be blessed by Kevin, probably the most incisive, insightful writer, thinker, practitioner of insider movements I've ever met. What a gifted brother. So anyway, I'm glad we'll patch him in virtually. He's out in Pasadena. And then Thursday afternoon, Deb Fazenfeld. Here she is. Deb will lead us through as she can. So walk us through the week and help us to connect the dots in terms of the takeaways and the things. What we'll ask of you, it's a real blessing to me. I have come to really appreciate raising funds for this, because what I like about it is I link friends who really, when I frame it, they want to invest in that. That's really cool. Now, it's not always easy to raise money, because if it doesn't come in the time frame you're thinking, then you start sweating, right? Anybody ever do that? You're fundraising and the funds aren't there, and and then you lose a few nights sleep. But it's a real joy. And I think for you, we framed this just because of my experience. We're in Asia. Our team leader comes back to the US. Sterling and I are in our 8th year. We're doing a new church plan. By that time, I started to figure the culture out. And for the first time in our ministry there, I began to understand how the gospel can flow with the culture rather than against it. And I think I'm doing this in Jesus. What a shock, right? And so he leaves, we're doing that. I'm leading our team. Our field explodes in numbers. The fledgling church movement's accountable up to me. And I felt the full fury of the evil one, and it hurt. And so that's when I thought, but I'm not alone in experiencing the burden and pressing the gospel outward and how much it can hurt. And I realized in moments like that, how broken and frail I am. So that's why I thought, I bet I'm not alone. So we bring friends together with a shared sense. I go to a lot of North American pastoral conferences. This is a judgment, and I'll try not to make any more this week, but let me say this. This is my contrast. I was horrified going to the pastoral conferences because I felt like I couldn't identify with them. I felt like they had all the answers and everything was so well manicured. And I'm thinking, that is not my ministry experience. I can't identify with that. So Stir and I created this. We sat down one day, 2003, and we thought, well, what would you have liked, Jim? And I wish my home church would have called me and said, Jim, we're sending you to that city somewhere in the world with 50 of your global counterparts, your age group, growing in capacity, mentors, a lead team pouring in. All we ask of you, put your heart on the table. Nothing you say that week will get you fired. Now, the next week, well, that was kind of what we were thinking. We'd love to put this together where the doors are locked, the stuff's there. If it's there, this is the space to enjoy it. And as you're in your groups, allow the narratives of one another to rest just there. Bless and be blessed. If there's pain, this is a place for it. There's joy, there's advanced. Man, we want to dance with you, right? And so there's all the gamuts. Think of each of the speaking team are peers. The other piece to this is I didn't want it to be kind of power distance, speaking down at us. I love the beautiful mutuality that Jesus affords us to be sharing together. So there you're going to have various ages and genders speaking to us throughout the week. And I just love that too in this process. And so my encouragement to you is first, enjoy the week. Just tell your soul every day, this is a gift. Enjoy it. Just every morning you wake. And then what I'd like you to do with your small group by the end of Thursday is you'll work with your mentor to have 2 days, 2 times that you would meet virtually in the next 3 months to debrief the 2 takeaways we'd like to ask you to frame through the week. You'll hear things and they'll bless you and you say, I want to work on that. I need to think more on that. Frame it in such a way that it's a tangible action item. Make it actionable. I want to reflect upon loving God on a weekly basis for the next 6 months. So once a week for an hour, you're pulling out Shane's practice and you're just going to work on it. Now, what my encouragement is work on those 2 takeaways for a year. Say no to something to say yes to those. You got to say no somewhere. You can't just keep adding, right, to your schedule. You'll kill yourself on the journey. So say no somewhere. But my thought is this: what transforms? In the final analysis, is it going to conferences? Is it reading the books? Is it side by side with others? How does Jesus transform us? And my thought, at least for this environment, is practice 2 things for a year and you'll see life change. Generally, life change comes over a longer period of time. It's not, now praise God, when I first got saved, talk about radical change, but it got slower over time. And the work is much deeper now and a little bit more, may I say, a little bit more painful on that journey. So that's what we're interested in. Transformation for you. And then we're kind of a family. There's a broader NextGen family, and fall in love with one another and let the movement grow. The blog space on the NextGen, you know what I love about that? We try to keep the 300 words. Some of you really enjoy writing. Write to one another. I love creating that space. I'm not interested in the superstar blogger. They're out there. Praise God. Go for it. I love it from a community standpoint where we're talking to one another. We're sharing. It's more life on life together. We're fellow journeyers. So think about that. That's kind of the NextGen space in this. And there's a bunch of you that have been tracking with us for a long time. How many of you, this is your first NextGen thing? That's quite a few. Yeah, welcome. Somewhere on the journey, you bumped into someone, because this is by invitation only, right? You bumped into somebody for whom this thing makes sense. So I'm thankful that you're here, and I hope the week really becomes a blessing to us all. How about the next slide? Let's see, what did I say next? I can't recall. It was just neat. We have an Envision group. And maybe you'd like to be part of that in the future. We assemble together when we get a sense from the Lord. I don't have any set schedule for this. This is under Frontier Ventures. They let me play in my sandbox while I'm also the director of mobilization for them. We do neat things, perspectives, and the global movement of the gospel. Praise God. I'm working with Pastor Adrian and other neat things. Yeah, it's good. But this is the one that we enjoy playing in the most. So very thankful Frontier Ventures lets us. But we have an Envision group. And in our off seasons, we'll get together, 10, 15 of us, 20. Once we were down at Josh and Jennifer's place and took 2.5 days to envision, Lord, what are you saying to us? And we crafted a sense of discernment. It was beautiful. It wasn't just Jim now or Jim and Sterling. We had about, in that particular season, we probably had 20. And then this past year, we did it virtually. And just to discern, and that's where we crafted this time of both soul and team. Generally, as a general rule, I don't like 2 broad themes in 1 week. It's too much. They forced me. So if it doesn't work, it's their fault. However, it's a great deal, isn't it? I mean, it's a great idea. All of us are living in community, and that's part of the teamness. And as Shane was highlighting for us, team is God's idea. And out of that, I landed on the Acts 13 as our grounding text. I love the passage. It's just beautiful to see an early church team getting together. What did you all do, Paul, when you guys got together? Barnabas, what? And that's Acts 13. It gives us this neat snapshot. The verbs in there all speak to the activities of the life of the early church. How about the next slide? What did I say next? We've attempted to define it this way, and we much appreciate how you veterans with us define it within your constituent world. God reminds Israel his possession in Isaiah 40. I was reading this the other night. I have refined you in the furnace of suffering. So in our values proposition statement for the thing we do, one of them is that weakness is a essential ingredient of leadership, which is absolutely not a bestseller in North America. Look at the leadership literature. And I go so far as to say, as Paul's seminal insight, his seminal book on weakness and leadership is 2 Corinthians. But that's just not a bestseller in our country. So I just wanted to allow weakness, because when I realized I'm battling me in the advance of the gospel, there was no language for that. I couldn't even put that in my newsletters because I would lose support. You know how vicious that is? You're in this, God deliver us, right, from ourselves. And so I was thankful that God was reminding us, I have refined you in the furnace of suffering. So God permits all of us. He puts us, all of us, at various times on our journeys in the furnace of suffering. And it's a refinement. And so that this week is a chance, if that's important in the conversation at this stage in your journey, that it's welcomed here. This is a place for it. And I don't want us to show up with the implication that we've got our act together. What was God getting at with Paul and his heavenly inflicted suffering curriculum causing such weakness there in 2 Corinthians 12? And it was simply this: Paul was more useful to God in his pain than in his full physical capacity. Now chew on that for a while. What a curriculum, right? Gee, God, when do I get off this? Can I get an A and move on? And God said, stay in there, buddy, and I'll see you soon. Next slide. Who are you? Yes. Delegates. Let's see if I could have delegates just raise your hands. Who are our friends, the delegates? Delegates would be non-mentors, non-speaking team. You'd be a delegate. That's great. There you go. That is the word we've used to describe you. Let me very thankful for the we met here in March with this alongside our conversation, and I'll mention that a little bit tomorrow with John Kim. And that gave me the thought, maybe we could meet in person. Brothers and sisters, you don't know how good it feels to meet together. This has been such a turbulent season, hasn't it? And our movement like this, we're we're just better when we're together by God's grace in this facility, how they handle it. I was going to just run down through the names, but I'm going to have to maybe, I'll run through that tomorrow with y'all. Let me introduce to you the speaking team. Then Sterling will, no, pardon? Okay. Yeah, work with me on that. Where did I put my list? As if I need it. Let me just briefly then introduce the speaking team to you. So this afternoon, Lee will be speaking to us. I'll do a little bit more, but I met Lee years ago when I was leading an agency, a mission agency that he joined, and I maliciously assigned him to an unreached people, out of which came the story he's going to share with us this after, and it's left a deep imprint on all of us. So I'm thankful. Dave Ray was going to join him this after. I'll explain more why Dave's not here. Flies into the country from Asia and is now having to tend to mom who's probably fading and maybe dying here any day. Tuesday morning, we have Nancy Wolf with us, Nancy and Tom. They're longtime friends of ours, veterans. They're doing some neat work with their org in the Middle East, and Nancy's going to speak. She also writes well, have fun, and she's just a blessing when she said yes. Tom normally does the speaking here, and I said, Tom, to get Nancy, I know I had to get him, so my concession was, you get to introduce her tomorrow. So Tom gets to introduce Nancy. Okay, I'll come. That's great to have Tom and Nancy, and just really, you're going to love. I love it too. One of the blessings is to see a husband and wife team serving well in the gospel. That's pretty cool. And in the process, then Josh speaks to us Tuesday afternoon. Of course, you met Josh this morning. Known Josh, bunches of years now. Met him maybe 2008-ish, somewhere in there. And early on, Josh joined the NextGen movement. And it's just hard to imagine. Those of you who've been with us a long time, it's almost like it's just hard to imagine the movement without Josh and then Jennifer. So it's just beautiful to have Josh. Gifted man, he founded Proskinel. It's a multicultural worship and arts movement. And you'll love it throughout the week. They have us singing in 20 languages of the world. And it's just so neat where you're singing a Jesus who isn't just North American in this process. It's a great gift. Wednesday morning, Virgil will be speaking to us. Virgil has, whenever we started this, back before the foundations of the world, Virgil was with us and speaking, and you'll be blessed. It's become very dear to the fam, and you'll understand. We get to frame things together, and he's just a joy. Wednesday afternoon, Deb will speak to us. I've been getting to know Deb through Francis, Fran Pat sitting in the back there. He's on the website, if you've seen it, he's the chief instigator for the kingdom. That's Fran. That's his gift. Anyway, he introduced Deb to us on the journey, and you'll see Wednesday. She's vivacious. She just brings Jesus to the places where she's at in her heart. But she's also carrying a wound and a profound burden on behalf of her people. That's why I thought, this is so same time right now. So she'll talk to us about what's happening in the Afghani context. Then we'll spend some time in prayer there. Thursday morning, Kevin, and then Deb. Deb is an in-law of some sort of relation to Virgil, not an outlaw. That's how we met Deb. And then she just brings these beautiful gifts to us. So very, very thankful. And her ministry and Life Action and so forth. So that's kind of the speaking team. I just wanted to also, I mentioned it last night at dinner, but Fran has been a dear friend with ours. I met him 22-ish years ago, cup of coffee, and he was part of the leadership team at Frontier Ventures all these years, and invited us into that space. And he gave this movement a space to dock, so I wouldn't have to create my own organization, which I didn't want to do. So I was really blessed. So you'll enjoy Fran throughout the week. He's just a friend of the movement and got a heart of gold. So that's good. So that's kind of the speaking team. Sterling, you have a question, or yeah, good. Sterling will do it. Ladies and gentlemen, my wife Sterling.
Hi, thank you. That was very kind. I want you to get your journal out or whatever you want to write on. And everybody came with an expectation or a thought what this might be, even though Jim says it could be a conference, a gig, or an event, whatever it may be. But maybe you came with the questions up on the PowerPoint if you need a refresher. You to write if you like. I'm going to introduce the mentors to you so you know who your mentors are and where your groups are. If you'll pull out your sheet, it looks like this. And while you're pulling that out, I'm going to read a verse that you're very familiar with. When we first started mentoring, to give you a little history, we had a few people come for a week and they mingled. And we were very organic, and we still are. We can't force relationships, but we do want to be intentional in setting the table and making sure you are heard, understood, and affirmed. And as Shane said earlier, if you're not heard, understood, or affirmed by the end of the week, it's probably you're not letting anyone see you. Is that one of the things you're not known because you're probably not letting anybody see you? So we're trying to set the table so that when you go to your small groups and when you're talking to one another, it's an atmosphere where you feel like you can share your story. And we want to be respectful of each person's story. We want to honor one another. And because our souls are precious. And so anyway, that's all I'm going to say on that. So I'm going to read a verse, and I can't read it without my glasses. The things you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, the same commit to faithful men who are able to teach others also. 2 Timothy 2:2. And the message says, pass on what you've heard from me, the whole congregation saying amen, to reliable leaders who are competent to teach others. And we have the mentors. They're your brothers and sisters, your moms and dads, but we're really just fellow journeymen coming along, mutually encouraging one another. And that's you too want to encourage one another in your group, not just the mentors. And so when Josh Davis said, what can you share with somebody about what you saw God work this work? I don't know how he said it, but mercy. Jim had mentioned all of you. And so one of mine was watching Yvonne work up there. This is the first that we've served breakfast. Does that mean my time's up? When we've never served breakfast because you've always been in homes of the church people. So this is a first, and she and her team give religiously. And then I think of the mentors and you giving up a whole week to be here. That's a big commitment. And they're doing it voluntarily because they love you. They want to come alongside of you and they believe in you. So I would like to introduce them. And you're going to get to know people outside your group and inside your group. But we have to start somewhere. And so if I'm going to use, if you will stand up when I call your name, and then you can sit back down. The Olaches, Joe and Kim. I'm going to use my notes so I can get through and not ramble, but I could do it without it. Also become dear friends to us. Joe was a student of Jim's at Liberty, and they're both great veteran, a pastor and pastor's wife, among many other things, for 35 years. And now they're working in a global discipleship movement. So we're glad to have them. So if you're in their group, that's who. And when we call you to the group, they will stand in one of where the pieces of papers are, the Post-it, and then you find your group, and you can take your chair there, and that's where we'll meet, and then we'll bring our chairs back when we're finished. The Greens, Wilson and Laura, not the Wilsons, but the Greens. Dear longtime friends as well, pastor and works revival ministry with Life Action, and Laura has faithfully been beside him all these years. How many years has it been? 22. Did I say Life Action? Okay. Jonathan Pugh and Jen Shrell. I'll tell Jonathan Pugh first. He and his wife have become dear friends. He oversees the discipleship ministry of the church, probably among other things that aren't always listed, and near Charlotte, North Carolina. And Jen is a great veteran missionary and co-workers with Tyria, that I'm going to be saying in a minute, in South Asia, and is a life coach and author. Thank you. Lee Pitt and Allison Gill. Lee Pitt serves in the Middle East with 7 kids and 1 on the way. And Lee will also be speaking, and Jim's already introduced him. So, and then Allison is a veteran missionary to Muslims, gifted and wise sister. We're glad to have her this year. And she's joining us as a mentor as well. Dr. Don and Jennifer Love. Don is a theologian, and God has laid him and Jennifer, his wife, gifted as well, into a beautiful prayer movement called Pray Through It. I was going to say pray together in it. Pray through it. And I thought I better not say that. So thank you. So Tyria and Carl Saxton. So Tyria is a longtime friend, veteran missionary, and creative artist in mission serving in South Asia, among many other things. Carl is a wonderful missionary as well, many years serving in church planning in Argentina or South America, right? Now, and he and his wife serve now with the organization in a Spanish ministry here in North America. Chris Wilson and Tom Wolf. Chris is a dear friend, along with his wife and 7 kids. Been a friend to the NextGen for many years, a businessman with flourishing tech company with a very missional heart. Both he and his wife were students of Jim, and also Dorothy was one of my students. Tom, a veteran leader along with his wife, Nancy, who was already introduced, with a large mission agency, went from industry to pastorate to church planning in South Africa, and now serving in leadership in the Middle East. Now, if any of these things are wrong, blame Jim. And Virgil is going to be taking Dave and Julie Ray, who cannot be here with us, that group. And Jim just introduced him, but he's going to be a mentor this year as well. Jeb Feisenfeld and the O'Neills will be floating, so don't be alarmed if we decide to sit in your group from time to time. And virtually, we have Marv Brubaker, who's been also a longtime friend of NextGen, and he really wanted to be here, but Canada would not let him out because he's so important. And he's the director of MentorLink in Canada, who mentors leaders all over the world. So he has chosen to help us on the virtual side. So we're very thankful. And Chris has served in Spain and is now in Germany doing church planning, right? And he used to be, before he was married and all that, we knew him. He led a steel drum band all over Brazil. So he also could not get out of Germany, was going to be here in person this year. And now he's also graciously doing the virtual for us. So we're glad to have all of them. Can you give them a hand, please?